Ashley Benefield being found guilty of manslaughter, not murder in the second degree. The jury kind of made some concessions and somehow agreed that the lesser charge was appropriate. What is next for her? Well, sentencing. She faces up to 30 years in prison with a minimum of 11.5. Joining me to discuss, Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. There we go. We have a guilty verdict on a case that was extremely confusing, extremely dividing and divisive once people started to actually hear the case in court. I think a lot of us had our preconceived notions going in, and as it continued, as it should, opinions can change. What's been your thoughts as the case progressed through and she took the stand and we heard more and more arguments from both sides?
Yeah, and I'm with you, Tony. Opinions changing. Mine did.
Hmm.
Because as we do with all human behavior, all we can do is take in the data points that were presented, and until we actually see the case go to prosecution and everyone lays out more data, more leads, tips, and all these things, do we actually get a more fuller picture? So it's always with a caveat that what we know so far leads me to this. And so before we had more data, I was more on the side of him.
Hmm.
But as data came out, we're like, there's a lot more things here that's saying there's a lot of really off behavior that he did as well that we
Hmm.
didn't know beforehand. That still being said, I still didn't see what I really wanted to see, which was mother-daughter communication.
I know.
And and that to me, and I even have it in my notes here, even before, as I took my notes on this case prior to the conviction as I was prepping. My question was this, and this is why I'm very happy that there's accountability for death, but not murder. It's manslaughter. So
Hmm.
I think that's appropriate sentencing. That's a steep sentence though on manslaughter. It looks like
It is.
the window in there. But with that being said, I think that the communication between the mother and daughter to me is really paramount because that lays out, was this a premeditated notion in her head
Hmm.
or a moment of passionate impulse of defense?
Hmm.
And so we would only know that if there was ever a communication between the mother and the daughter at some point saying, hey, maybe you ought to just bump this guy off, maybe we should just do something. I don't know what it would be, but we've seen this in other cases where that is a great insight to what was going on in her mind, because that's what this always comes down to when we're going for a conviction, whether it's manslaughter, acquittal,
Hmm.
or murder, is what was in the mind of the assailant, of
Hmm.
the person that was committing the murder. And we don't truly know that, I think, in this case yet, because she's kind of been all over.
And maybe we didn't see it because there's nothing there. I mean, we did see some
Possibly.
celebrate information. We did see some texts back and forth, but we didn't see anything there. And I can only assume it's because there was nothing there to see. Otherwise, I would assume that this would have been part of the case itself. But we certainly did learn a lot more about Doug. It was
Yeah.
originally kind of presented as he just wants to see his kids. He's just a dad who wants to be close to his kids. And while I believe that is an element of the case, there was a lot more to Doug than just a concerned father, especially when we started to learn about a pattern of behavior. And it
Hmm.
really, one of the biggest pieces, I think, of this, and to me, what I'm guessing maybe moved the jury from second degree to manslaughter was the revelation of the text message or the email that she had found between Doug and his wife, who is ex-wife, who is now deceased, where she is telling him just how upset and sad and betrayed she feels that he's not the person that she thought she was marrying, and how upset she was that he kicked her on their honeymoon cruise because he couldn't get it up and he had to use Viagra. And in his own frustration, he takes it out on her. I mean, this is something where and then you start learning more about the behavior, start learning
Hmm.
about his extreme jealousy when Ashley was on a cruise with her mom because there was some male voices in the background as someone was walking around the ship, and he goes immediately to, I want to destroy those people and take them off of the earth. Not a normal response from anyone.
Well, actually, it's in line with a normal response of a 13-year-old.
Yes. Very much so. A very high testosterone
Yes.
13-year-old boy who has no control over their emotions, but we're talking
Yep.
a man who's like in his 50s at this point.
Massively insecure,
Yes.
wants total control because of their own insecurities, their own feeling of inadequacies. And so they're constantly trying to control the women in their lives to allow themselves to feel fulfilled.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm reading John Douglas's book right now. It's the one, oh, it's a horrendous one. It's all about the seven, I think it's 17 different types of sexual assault and rapes.
Oh God.
And it's horrendous. And so some of these behaviors are the ones that you see as an escalation, the precursors towards an escalation towards that when it comes to this immaturity, this need to control. Obsession is the name of the book.
Hmm.
And so yeah, as we got the more data points on him from those earlier years and even current,
Yeah.
it's unfortunately, I think it could have gone even potentially better for her had she been a better witness for herself. I really just don't think she was that good because she seemed a little flighty at times, kind of contradiction herself. Basically her behaviors contradicted themselves a few times, which I
Mhm.
think hurt her. Thankfully, prosecution was able to, well, defense was able to bring out, all the negative behaviors of him, which helped um her defense, but at the same time, yeah, she became very confusing, which also led to me to think too, was there a level of trauma bonding that was going on with her as well, that
Oh,
she kept
sure.
coming back.
I would say, probably without a doubt that there was a level of that going on. It
Yeah.
seems in this case, you have an intimidator and a manipulator, uh, the two of them. You have him
Yeah.
being very much an intimidator, wanting to be in control, and the way he does it is intimidating and acting macho, what he believes is macho and manly. And some people will respond to that depending on their own past and what they perceive as this is strong man type behavior. And then you have someone who seems to have had to manipulate their way through life in a lot of ways, using sex, using control, using whatever is at their means to kind of get by. And this is how they operate. Both wanting to be in complete control at all times and not having any sort of grounds for let's share this. We have a kid. Let's find a happy medium. There didn't seem to be any sort of happy medium for either of these two.
Yeah, and we see this a lot in horrible cases like this, where two unhealthy people are attracted to each other because they're both unhealthy to leveling degrees, and it resulted in a tragic death.
Yeah.
And now there's an accountability for that tragic death, and definitely not victim blaming on it on either side, just
Hmm.
because there was horrendousness, I think, that was done to both, and
Yeah.
he wound up paying the ultimate price for it, but she's now accountable for it as well.
Hmm.
And it sounds like the jury did a good job, that they put a lot of thought into what they were doing. I'm glad they had the flexibility for the other charges that we didn't see in things like the Karen Reed case. It was
Sure.
either all or nothing. So it seems like at least on the charges and conviction, justice was done. We'll see when it comes to sentencing what'll happen.
We were talking earlier about her testimony, how she came across. I'm going to play a clip here of some of her testimony, and on the other side, let's discuss what we both see here. Let's take a look.
But on this day, you weren't concerned about him coming over.
I, no, I knew he was coming.
Okay. And when he came over, your mother and Emerson went to the park.
I believe they were headed there. I'm not sure. I think they were down the driveway or on the sidewalk, something like that. They were on their way there.
You weren't so afraid that you wanted your mother to stay there and watch.
No, we were just packing to move.
Okay, so you weren't afraid.
I definitely didn't expect this to happen.
So it was of you that your mother left.
Yeah, at that time.
Okay. So if I heard you right during your direct, you said he bumped your shoulder twice. Body check, I don't know if that's what you called it. He walked into you with a box, right?
Yes.
And then at the end, you say he slapped you?
He hit me. I don't. I wouldn't know how to classify it. He struck me. He hit me.
Was his hand open or closed?
I don't remember.
Okay. And because of those things, you claim that you thought he was going to kill you.
He had never hit me before.
Okay. And you thought he was going to kill you.
He wouldn't let me leave. I tried to leave. He stopped me.
The question is, you thought he was going to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were in the bedroom, you decided to get your firearm. And it was where?
It was in a storage bin on top of the laundry basket.
Okay. So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 52. If you could turn around and look at that. Where was your firearm?
It was in the bin on top of the basket.
Here?
That's the basket. The laundry
Where was
basket.
the bin?
It's that right on top.
Okay. So it was in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would you have a firearm in there?
I had just emptied all the furniture and everything out of my room, and it was kind of like what was left from my drawers, and so it got put into a bin.
Okay. And that was not your only firearm in that room, correct?
Correct.
You had a firearm in the closet.
My carry gun was in my backpack, which is my purse at the time.
So in this room, with a mattress and a broom and a hamper, you had 2 firearms.
Yes.
So you go into the room and you grab your firearm. Is it in a holster?
I don't remember.
Okay. And you claim that Doug does what?
He came and slammed the door open. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "You're fucking done."
He said, "You're fucking done." And that made you fear for your life.
Yeah.
What did you get out of all of that?
It's all over the place to me.
Yeah.
Um, she definitely believes a lot of what she's saying. She doesn't come across as a very deep, reflective thinker on certain topics, certain things. I mean, she knew the firearm where it was. Why was the firearm loaded in the house for someone who typically doesn't use it that frequently? I was curious about why she actually has a carry firearm. Does she constantly feel her life was at threat? For someone that young, and also how could she not know if it was in a holster or not? I mean, it to me is like either have a holster or you don't have a holster, and when you keep a firearm at home, you either know it's in it or not in it.
Yeah.
To me, that there was not a lot of deep thinking, not a lot of credibility with some of the things she's. In other words, the things that she should know, she didn't seem to know, but she seemed believable at points. It seemed a little contrived at other points. I mean, to me, it kind of seemed all over. Which, so saying what I said the way I said it, there's a lack of congruency
Yeah.
of behavior. Lack of congruency, whether she's truthful or not, does not come across as very truthful and trustworthy.
I agree. It feels to me like she went down this path. I'm gonna guess it was impulsive. I don't really think that she was necessarily sitting there planning to kill him. I think she went to an extreme that one day. I don't know if she truly believed her life was in danger. Maybe she did. I mean, considering the way Doug had spoken before and what he talked and the way he was acting, if you are an overreactor, if you're an impulsive person, I can see how one could perceive that. It may not be reality, but a personality like that, perceiving that. But the fact that she's gone down this road so far, she has no choice but to keep going down this road. And she's going to throw everything she can at it, every over the top acting that she can, because this is her journey. There's no turning back. And I think that's what sunk her more than anything is if she had just been a little more authentic and not. I think there was times here where there didn't need to be extra tears, where there didn't, because there really were no physical tears, which was noted. But the over the top of going from very just I can't speak to. Oh yeah, that was over there. That's not how
Yeah,
emotions work. Like it's
but
very
I
telling.
know, and at the same time, the part that keeps tugging me back also on this though is those are, the inconsistencies, the incongruencies can also be from trauma triggered
Yeah,
responses as
yeah,
well. So you see how it kind of tugs you all over the place, and what do you do with it? So
yeah,
and that's why. when you're left at the end of the day, when you're being tugged all over the place as a juror, as someone like us analyzing, is, well, what was the end result? The end
Yeah.
result was someone lost their life at your hands. And so I think that's why we don't have a murder conviction. We have a
Yeah.
manslaughter conviction, because she was just
Oh,
all over the place. And I think everything we're saying is accurate. I
yeah.
think it's a little bit of it all.
No.
And which makes it very muddled, which makes it, like we've seen with this case, it's been very confusing, because I still do not think she's a deep reflective thinker on a lot of things. That's why even I don't, like you had said, Tony, I don't think there's a premeditation in here, but that's not to say that it's not been planted in the back of her head as a solution.
Yeah.
There's a whole difference here, so when we get into high stress moments and we hit fight or flight, the things that we react to and how we react to them will go to things that might be in the back of our brain.
Yeah.
So somewhere another, in other words, when you are confronted with stress, you're going to problem solve through that stress with the only things that you've thought of before, because contemplating and cognating thoughtfully in the moment isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
You're reacting to the stress of that moment. As she said, she kind of said she feared for her life ish.
Yeah.
And she was fearful is another way is a good way to say it. She was fearful. She hit fight or flight is what it sounded like in that moment. For some reason, her solution to fight or flight was not to hide, was not to run. He hit her for the first time, she said, which I'll believe.
Sure.
And her solution was to shoot him.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Mm-hmm.
That was put into her brain somewhere as a solution that was either talked about, discussed. She saw it. That's why I keep going back to the mother. That just doesn't pop into someone's brain.
Yes. Well, and my other question is too, she has a little girl that's running around this house. Why do you have a loaded firearm sitting in a laundry basket in your bedroom? Like, perfect place for a child to, kids like laundry baskets. They just do. I don't know why, but they do. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, laundry basket. And you have a fucking 45 in it? Loaded?
And it's such a good point, Tony, because so this is a loaded firearm with most likely a round in the chamber.
Yeah.
So let's draw upon what we witnessed from the Donald Trump assassination attempt.
Yeah.
What we saw from, the highly criticized Secret Service personnel that jumped on Donald J. Trump to protect him. In the few moments after that, where they now are escorting him to the car, many people have been jumping on one of the female Secret Service agents that had a hard time reholstering her gun.
Mm-hmm.
The reason behaviorally she was having a hard time reholstering her gun in that moment, because she was in fight or flight. When we're in fight or flight, our dexterity flees. That's why we rely on training to react and do the things in those moments through those repetitions that we have, those life reps, because we will revert to life reps. Cops that are first time doing a car stop that see something that goes awry, they're gonna freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Cops that have seen something on a car stop for 100 or 200 times are going to do something completely different, because they have exposure, because they have reps, because they have practiced in this. And so to that point, what I'm saying here is that this gun, in my estimation, had to have been loaded with a round in the chamber.
Yeah.
Because I do not think in a fight or flight situation, as she's describing, she would have had the dexterity, the thoughtful wherewithal to take a magazine that obviously must have been loaded it into gun, and then racked the gun so there's a round in the chamber, and then fired. So this gun was sitting in the house, like you said, easy access with a round in the chamber.
With a small child wandering around.
With a small child at home.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, to take the murder out of it, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, especially these people were into firearms. It wasn't like, oh, let's go get a gun and we have no idea what we're doing with this thing. They were like big into firearms, both of them. And I think it says a lot too. I mean, again, we go back to look at the pattern here. They got married within 13 days. She's always carrying around a firearm. I mean, there's talk of Doug's cousin the first time they met at a political event. She pulls a gun out of her bra. These are people who, there's a level of paranoia here, I think, as well.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you on that one. So here I am, I'm retired FBI.
Yeah.
I am actually legally able to carry, because I maintain my firearms proficiency. I go for my qualification once a year. I can carry a firearm concealed anywhere in this country all the time.
Yeah.
You know how often I do that?
Not a lot.
Not a lot,
Yeah.
extremely rarely, because why?
Yeah.
I mean, it just it's for a large part. I mean, it depends on where I'm going, what I'm doing. I always
Sure.
assess situations, who I'm with, and those kind of things. But by and large, why? And I've been authorized to carry a firearm for a large part of my life.
Hmm.
I've never had to draw it on a human being. It's
Hmm.
very rare. It's not all that frequently
Yeah.
that people do it. Yet, for some reason, she felt so compelled that she had to have one, and not just have one on her, but with a round in the chamber in the house.
Hmm.
You know, if you're going to do that, the level of safety and proficiency you need to feel safe and secure in your house, as well as other people that are coming in on your house, has to be really, really high. I
Yeah.
mean, even in my own house with my kids, when I had to have firearms at home,
Hmm.
I trained my children as soon as they were aware enough of that, what daddy did,
Hmm.
about what to do when you're around a firearm, what you do if you ever saw one in anyone else's house or our house, who to go to, what to do, what not to do. I mean, it was relentless
Yeah.
on safety protocols. And I never ever kept one with a round in a chamber in the house, ever.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, yeah. It's not hard. If you need to get one in, you can throw the clip in and pull it back and you're good. To have it right there the way that she did, really, you can just pull the trigger and it goes off. That's nuts. With a small child right there.
Well, it's dangerous, and now we
Yeah.
saw the result of it.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Obviously, Doug was not an angel here by any means.
Right.
And we learned that through some of the arguments. Let's take a look at the defense arguing. They're trying to say Doug was obsessed with Ashley, and I mean, there may have been a level of that. I think there was a level of him confused. I mean, yes, I don't think he was a great guy by any means, but he's also a parent, and you can still be a parent and be concerned about your child and not be the nicest person in the world. And be fairly shitty actually. But if you don't know where your child is and it's just being withheld from you, and there's really not a reason to be doing that, you may be looking for your kid. Here's what the defense is arguing about what Ashley was thinking.
Doug Benefield shoots a gun into the ceiling of their kitchen to intimidate Ashley to stop speaking, throwing a loaded gun at Ashley Benefield, threatening suicide, punching the dog so hard that he knocked the dog unconscious, threw the cat down the stairs, put a tracker on her car. The neighbor catches him in the yard at night, cursing, yelling, screaming, belittling. Text messages, I'm in a murderous mood. I want to rid the earth of them. Take them out. That was about two guys having a conversation while Ashley was on a cruise. Doug Benefield was so demented that just hearing in the background two men speaking while Ashley was on a cruise makes him say he wants to take them out, rid the earth of them. That puts him in a murderous mood. How about driving from South Carolina to Florida so that you could follow Ashley in the car? I mean, if that's not determination, what is? If that's not fixation, what is? If that's not obsession, what is? And most chilling, I thought, was Mr. Vincicaro, the realtor, who, while the injunction is in effect from South Carolina, look at the email between Doug Benefield and Vince Vincicaro. I asked him, did you have any dealings with Douglas Benefield? Yes, I did. What was it? He was a customer looking to buy a home. Where was that home? It was the house immediately behind Ashley Benefield's house. This is sick, ladies and gentlemen.
Unhealthy behavior all around. I'd be scared of him too if I were her to a certain extent. But again, it's like how are these situations handled. I mean, eventually he gets invited back in and told that they're going to move in together and they're going to move away, but that's not even her plan when he's there helping her pack. I mean, there seems like there's so many ways this could have been dealt with that wouldn't have led to this.
Yeah, 100%. These are two people that couldn't communicate worth of beans.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the really, really bad choice she made to keep a loaded gun with a round in the chamber in her house. Because I don't guarantee. It's hard to imagine that even if that gun had been where it was, if the magazine was out of that gun, this would have had the same result.
Yeah. Had there been no
Just-
guns in the house, I mean, obviously, nobody would have been shot. Would there have been? How would it have ended, though? Too. I mean, if he's in this rage, if he's suddenly realizing he's down there loading the U-Haul, and she says, "I'm not going with you," and he's blocking her way out. I mean, God, this could have ended in another way too. But again, it's a big unknown as well. And there wasn't. And here's another interesting part of it. And this is another thing that I think sunk her story a bit, because she had testified in the past that he was physically abusive. She had done that in the child custody case. And here we hear on the stand her, and I think she slipped up because she kind of, I think, took a pause when she said it, like, "Oh shit, I just said that out loud," of he's never been physically abusive with me in the past. Again, not to negate mental abuse, because I think there was a ton of it.
Right.
But it showed a pattern of lying, of exaggerating the truth for her own gain. And I think that really went to her credibility.
Yeah, which could have been also trauma-induced false memories.
Sure.
That's why that's why it's really a tricky thing on this. I think what was happening here, as you were kind of insinuating to, this was on, both of them were on an escalated pattern towards violence.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was her or him, it was there was going to be, at this confrontation here, it was escalating to this confrontation in the house. And you're right, it's an interesting thought experiment. If there hadn't been around in that chamber, what would he have done?
Yeah.
So here she is, pulls a gun on him and points it at him, pulls a trigger, and it goes click.
Mm-hmm.
What would he have done?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We don't know the answer to that.
No, we don't.
It's two people that really didn't have any sort of problem solving skills, I think, at
No,
the end of the day.
none. Absolutely zero. And zero communication, zero trust. And he's acting, when it comes to relationships, at least as a teenager with developmental issues, not just a teenager, but a teenager with developmental issues. And she just doesn't strike me as a deep thinker.
Yeah.
It's very, she comes across very surface. Her answers are, again, it can be trauma response
Yeah,
answers, because
sure.
for those that are listening, I don't want to negate her experience in trauma.
No,
So
no.
it could be that as well. But man, it's just two unhealthy people with a tragic ending, and
Yeah.
it's going to ruin her life now too.
Well, and one of the biggest victims of this is the kid, because dad's dead and now mom's
There
going
you
to be
go.
away for pretty much the rest of her childhood.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.